How many here have heard of MODX? One. Okay, cool. How many people in the room are building websites? So, a couple of you. Well, I'll be talking about what MODX is. The talk is basically has two parts. One is going to be basically what it is, why maybe we should use it, and what's behind it. And then there's going to be a second part, which is a small demo, just to show what it looks like. So first of all, who am I? My name is Ben Davis. I'm an American living in Munich for about 13 years. I've been a web designer, freelance web designer for most of that time. And about a year and a half ago, I formed a company with a couple partners. And I am the MODX ambassador for the Munich area, which basically means that it's a non-paid position by MODX and is part of the community. And I put together meetups and events and try to talk about the system every once in a while. I'm a web developer. I'm managing director and co-founder of Sata Digital. We're a small web development agency that provides dynamic websites for lots of industry clients, and also we take care of antenna buy-in. So we do all the stuff for their online. I want to define what's coding freedom in my eyes. Basically, it's being able to write code with as little restriction as possible from a given framework or coding environment. In the past few years, as we all know, frameworks have been popping up everywhere, and some people have complained that they're too restrictive. With React, I've heard that lots of good things, that you're pretty flexible with that. But as I was looking for a solution for my website development, back in the day, I looked at different options like Typo 3 or Joomla or whatever it was back then, and I came upon MODX. So what is MODX? So first of all, the basics. It's a content management system. That's why I was comparing it to Typo 3 and to Joomla before. It's also a PHP framework based on XPDO, which makes it then a content management framework. It's an open source project. It's been existing since 2007. It comes from America. Behind it is the MODX Systems LLC, and they developed MODX as an open source project, but they've been using it for all of their projects. So they've used it for Dell, for Hilton Hotels, for various also large projects. It has an international community. It spans the globe. We've got meetups all over the place. In Germany, we've got my meetup group in Munich. We've got a meetup group in Cologne, and we've got one in Berlin. There's also events that get organized. 2 years ago, I organized the International Mod Expo, it's called, and we had visitors from all over the world there. And why should someone even consider looking at it? So it has a robust code base. That's because it's been around for a long time. It's gone through hundreds of thousands of projects. It's scalable and secure, so you can use it for very small websites. You can throw it onto a Strato hosting or a one-on-one hosting platform, shared hosting, and it works. You can also scale it up to a multi-server environment, which we do for antenna buy-in. It has a relatively light learning curve, especially for the front end, which I'll show later. I'm going to focus on the front end part. It has an intuitive CMS, which is great for our clients. And it's also very flexible. You can customize it, you can theme it. I'll show that later too. It has a logical templating structure. So inside of MODX itself, it has its own templating through placeholders. It has lots of good documentation. It has YouTube videos. There are lots of blog articles about it. It has an active open source community, like I said. In Germany, it's no one knows it. So what can you do with it? Well, you can use it to organize your complex content and data structures. Of course, you can create dynamic websites with it. You can also output JSON, XML, RSS, whatever you want to the browser, which makes it interesting for making RESTful APIs. You can make web apps, intranets, Internet of Things. It offers multi-channel output, so you could take the one content structure and you could port it to a website, at the same time port it to your internet, port it to a digital advertisement. That's all possible. So, to the point of coding freedom, how can MODX fulfill this definition that I gave before? What for me was really interesting was the first one, that the developer has 100% control of your code output. So MODX is totally agnostic, it doesn't care what you do with it. When you install it, you get like a white canvas and you can just do what you want with it. Right now I could write HTML7 and CSS20 with it if I wanted to, and it doesn't care. It can be integrated into existing workflows. The content is stored in the database, but as we're all working with Git, that becomes a problem in team environments, but there is a way that you can export your objects into the file system and track them that way. It has a clear separation of presentation and content. Basically, it can deliver whatever markup you want in whatever form you want to the browser. When I do the demo in a few minutes, I'm going to be using some words that are kind of MODX based, and that's why we're going to have this section out of MODX terminology. The first one is a resource. So a resource is a piece of your content. It has a URI, and it's typically an HTML page or a link, or it could be a JSON string, whatever you want it. Context. Contexts are groups of resources, which allows you to serve different websites from one MODX installation, or you could use this for multi-language. There's of course a template. The templates are assigned to a resource, and that hooks it up to your output. So for a website, it's mainly the outer HTML of your website, and then it contains placeholders that you use to connect it to other parts of your website. It is not dynamic, it does not contain PHP code. The PHP code exists in what they call snippets. So you can just throw regular PHP code into it and work with that. There's also a plugin architecture, so it allows you to extend the core functionality without having to hack it. MODX means modular extensibility, actually. And there are different system events that get triggered based on user interactivity in the back end and the front end. And some of these events are on doc form saved, on web page init, on page not found. There's like a whole list. So that makes it, you can dock onto it and you can change the theme if you want in the back end, or you can react to a user input and trigger an API or whatever you want to do with that. Chunk. So chunk is a reusable bit of code. For websites, you typically use it for HTML, but you could also throw in SVG, XML, JSON, whatever you want. Chunks are used for the templating architecture. So for navigation, for instance, you would have a chunk for the outer wrapper of your navigation, and then a chunk for your list item, for example. In the content management system, we've got forms that the user has to fill out. So they go to a resource, they get a form, and there are standard MODX fields within that form, like page title, content. And the template variables allow you to extend that, and you can prepare the form for other types of inputs, like a date picker, color picker. If you have a slider, you could add images, descriptions, that kind of stuff. And then there's an extra package situation there. The next version of MODX will be running Composer, but for right now they have their own packaging system that's hooked up to their environment, and then you can search for different packages that you want. It's kind of like a plugin architecture like WordPress, but the packages or the extras that are there are typically back-end based, so they extend the functionality of the MODX core as well. So if you look at it from the bottom up, we've got our template variables, our chunks, and our snippets, and they are all coming together in the template, which then the user can select to the resource, and then that goes out into the browser. So MODX is not a system. It's a system for developers. It's not a system for like I don't know. I don't want to say anything about the WordPress community, but it's not a basic plug-and-play kind of system. It's supposed to take the heavy lifting away from the back end for website developers. And so let's see if this works. So what I'm going to do is just take a basic template and then just show kind of like how the back end works, how you would separate it out and organize it. Here on the screen, it's a little bit hard to see actually. So it's not going to be the experience I had hoped. But this is like the welcome screen. Here's the dashboard, which you can put Google Analytics in there and get your high charts and stuff if you want. Right over here, we've got our resources, elements, and files. And so the resources, here's where we store our content. So we've got our context, in this case, is just called website. And then inside of websites, we are starting to have our site map, basically, of our website. I open one up. Here we've got the formula, the form. And then here we can choose between different templates that we assign. And here's our basic content area. So here in the elements area, this is where it gets kind of fun for us. Here we've got our templates, our template variables, our chunks, our snippets, plugins. We can create categories for our code. So if you're writing a component, maybe it's a slider, you might give it a category, front end, start page slider, for example. And then in there you would have your chunks for the HTML output. And then you have a snippet, a PHP code that's going to parse something out of the database to create this slider, for example, and that would be stored here. And so here's an example of a snippet. And you can code directly in MODX if you want to. With a tool called Gitify, you can then export it out of the database and save it in your file system, or you can assign a static file to it. So here, what I've done is I've just taken. This is just from Bootstrap, the website. I don't recommend Bootstrap, but I just took just for it to be easy. I just took one of the templates and just threw it into MODX here. This is exactly what you get. And then what I can do is I can create a new resource. I gave it the, here I'll show that again. The template name is Bootstrap Raw. So I can create a new document. I can create here show raw HTML. And I'll choose my raw template. It's going to ask, do you want to save your template? I say yes. And I save it. So it automatically gets its alias. And so this is what I get. I look at the code. It's exactly what I pasted into the MODX in the template. The reason why it's not showing us any pretty styles or anything is that our paths need to reflect our project. So what we do at my company is we have a system setting for our assets path. When you create a system setting, you have the ability to, with the placeholder, be able to access that. So for our company, we call it project.asset underscore URL, and then in the configuration, we just we type in the path there. So underneath here, under files, can you everyone see that? It's probably hard to see, huh?
Or you can use zoom in browser.
Yeah. So I've got here an assets path under templates, and then we've got a web context, and here are our assets to our JavaScript and our CSS. So if I wanted to, I can go back here, and I can say, so that template I call demo. And this is basically, it's the same thing, it's just that we have yeah. So here then we get our assets. The placeholder gets parsed, and then we get our path. So if we take a look at our template here under demo, that's a little bit awkward now. So we've got this great template. We've got our hooked up to our CSS and everything, but of course it's completely static. And there's also going to be elements in our template that we want to repeat throughout the project. We don't want to have like our navigation to be, or our head tag to be in every single template. So we want to work as dry as possible. And that's where chunks come into play. So what you can do is then you can copy a bit of code, create a chunk for it, and then you can access it via a placeholder. So here I've got a chunk that's just contains our head tag, and that's it. So here under chunks, I've got a category called Bootstrap Final. Typically, I've got like a templates category where I've got template-related chunks inside of that. And so here we've got the name of a chunk. You can name it however you wish. And then if we look at my final template here, here's what kind of the template then gets. So the template gets stripped out. In this case, I've got a chunk for the head tag. I've got a chunk for my navigation. I've got my scripts stripped out into a chunk. And then for my content, I've got placeholders for my page title and my content here. So,
if we rename the Bootstrap head, the resource, will we get a warning or something?
if you rename the chunk name,
Yes.
no, you won't get a warning. So you have to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
So a chunk is signified by a $sign. That means it's a chunk. If it's a variable, there's an asterisk. And if it's a snippet, then there is a exclamation mark if it should be not cached, and if it should be cached, then it's just the name. So if I go to my chunk that encapsulates my navigation, here I should see a snippet. So here's a snippet. It's called Wayfinder. And Wayfinder is a PHP code that you can get through MODX. You can download and install it. And this allows you to create your dynamic navigation through using a set of parameters. where you assign it your other templates. So you have an outer template, you can assign different classes. In this instance, I've got a class called Dropdown for the parent. So what it does is it goes through the parent-child relationship of your content, and then it reads it out, finds your page title, creates your link for you, and all you have to do is take care of your front-end templating.
Is this a specific templating language, or is that a
It's-
specific?
It's MODX, yeah. MODX has just been around for such a long time. Right now, they're with the 3.0 release, they're going back and forth as to how they want to do, what kind of other technologies they want to bring into it. And Twig is something that's been coming up every once in a while. As a composer, the back end, we don't know what framework that's going to be yet. Right now, it's based in XJS, which is extremely not flexible, and it's not accessible at all. So accessibility is also a big topic in the next version, the next major release.
But you can actually compare the templating language of MODX with Smarty. It's pretty the same. I think it's based on Smarty.
Yeah. Yeah, Smarty's used in the MODX Manager. That's what they call the CMS, the MODX Manager. So if we look at this Wayfinder call, and we can look at, let's say we look at the row template. I can't see that. So here's your row. So we've got placeholders from Wayfinder. There's specific classes that get written, like first level, second level, active. You can also decide what you want, what kind of classes you want it to write. You've got a placeholder for your link, for your title, and for your link text, which all gets out of the resource that was created. And so for the front-end developer, what I found with it was I was just able to create extremely dynamic things without having to know PHP at all. And that's why I just kind of fell in love with it. And so lots of front-end guys are using it for that purpose. So let's see here. So I've got a few resources here with the Bootstrap Final. And in the Bootstrap Final template there, we have our placeholders. And inside of our Wayfinder placeholder, or the navigation placeholder, we're using this snippet. So if I look at this page, it should give me a dynamic navigation here. So now if I was to take this, and then if I was to publish it, got a different template, but it doesn't matter. Now it's got a different template, it doesn't matter. That's the wrong one. So here it breaks the layout, but so here you see the. So here it breaks the layout, but here you see the. In recent years, there's a new add-on for MODX that's made it extremely attractive. It's called Content Blocks. Extremely attractive. And Content Blocks enables I'll just show it. I'll just show it. So I deactivated it. see, content blocks. Ah, la 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 la, I think. Ah, la 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 la. So there's an example of a website with Google Analytics. Of a website with like the Google Analytics plugin installed. And here we've got a website with. Let me zoom that up. Here we've got a website with. Let me zoom that up. Here we've got a website with multi-languages. We've got a website with multi-languages. So each language has its own context. And then because they need to be connected in some way for the front end, we've got a selector here to be able to link and unlink content. But here's content blocks, which I was talking about earlier. This is a little bit polarizing. Lots of people hate this. So what you can do is you can pre-assign different layouts for your content editor. So the content editor could say, okay, I want a two-column layout. Within this layout, I want to have rich text. I want to have. Let's see what do we got here. Yeah, I'm not sure. I wanted to put a headline in here, but I don't see a headline. Okay, I could put a map. I don't know. What I can do with these elements is that I can also drag and drop into the different columns. And also we've got. You can see the different. The different rows of our with different column widths. And we can also here adjust the order of these elements too. And content blocks has its own, in the back end you can, basically it outputs exactly the code that you want it to. So it has like a templating structure similar to MODX, or you can then say that a text block is going to have this markup or a slider or whatever you want to offer the content editor. But then basically, here we've got more of a variety of different templates that I've created. I've also got it connects to a third-party database for their PDFs. And I'm almost out of time. So if anyone wants to talk about MODX, I'm available the whole night. Let me go back to the presentation. Here's also, I'm sure we'll be posting the presentation on the Meetup page. Here's a list of documentation, the MODX forum, different blogs writing about MODX. And State Digital, we're hiring. I'm looking for people that are interested in making some cool things. And so you can contact me about that. Other than that, then if there's any questions, I appreciate your time.